They forged her signature. While she was 8,000 miles away, bleeding for her country, someone sat down at a desk, picked up a pen, and wrote her name on a document she had never touched. And with that single stroke of ink, they tried to take her daughter. But here's what they didn't count on. She wasn't just a mother. She was a medic. A soldier. A woman who had spent 12 years learning that when everything falls apart around you, you don't panic. You document. Before this story goes any further, take 1 second to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because stories like this one are proof that the truth always finds its way home. This is the story of a woman who went to war for her country and came home to fight a different kind of battle entirely. Her name was Tori. And the first thing you need to understand about Tori is this: she was not someone who fell apart. She was someone who held things together. That was her whole identity. Her job. Her purpose. At 18, with no one coming to save her, she saved herself the only way she knew how. She enlisted. 12 years later, she was a staff sergeant and a combat medic. The kind of person you want beside you when the world is burning. Steady hands. Steady voice. Steady mind. She had a daughter named Lily. 6 years old. Gap-toothed and wild-spirited. Obsessed with frogs and the color green. Lily's father had disappeared before she ever learned to walk, and Tori had long since stopped waiting for him to show up. It was just the two of them. Their life was small and deliberate and full. An apartment near the base in North Carolina. Lily's drawings taped to the refrigerator. Video calls and frog documentaries and bedtime stories read over shaky connections from forward operating bases. Tori kept their lives the same way she kept her medical kit, organized. Labeled. Nothing missing. When the 9-month deployment orders came down, she did what she always did. She made a plan. She named her best friend, Marie, a pediatric nurse with a background check and a fenced backyard, as Lily's designated caregiver. She filed the official family care plan with her unit. She had it notarized. She made copies. She left instructions, emergency contacts, school schedules, shot records, everything a mother who loves her child leaves behind when she has no choice but to go. She kissed Lily goodbye and boarded the plane believing every door was locked. She was wrong. There was one door she hadn't thought about, the one that could be opened from the inside by someone who had been watching her and waiting for years. That someone had a name. Sabrina. Tori's stepsister. 3 years older. A woman who had watched Tori's entire life the way someone watches a game they believe was rigged against them. When Tori enlisted, Sabrina rolled her eyes. When Tori got base housing, Sabrina called it charity. When Tori got the GI Bill, Sabrina called it a handout. And at a family cookout years before the deployment, when Tori announced she was going overseas, Sabrina set down her plate, looked across the yard, and said something in a loud enough voice that the whole family could hear it. Soldiers don't get to be moms. No one told her she was wrong. The grill kept hissing. Everyone looked away. Tori filed it under noise. She told herself it was just Sabrina being Sabrina, a sharp tongue on a petty day. What she didn't understand then was that to Sabrina, those words weren't an insult. They were a plan she hadn't built yet. 6 weeks into the deployment, the rhythm broke. Tori called at the usual time, the time Lily always had the phone propped up too close, all nose and grin and big news about which frog she'd found at recess. But this time, it wasn't Lily who answered. It was Marie. And Marie's voice was wrong. Tight. Careful. Like someone choosing every word before releasing it. Sabrina came by, Marie said slowly. She had some men with her. Papers. They talked fast and official. She said something about a court. About custody. And then the call dropped. Tori sat in the dark of her bunk with the phone still warm in her hand, trying to call back. Nothing. She told herself there was an explanation. There usually is. But she'd spent 12 years reading the difference between a minor problem and a life-threatening one in the look on someone's face. And Marie's face had been bleeding. It took a full day to get a line through to Sabrina. When she finally answered, her voice had that dangerous kind of calm in it. The kind that isn't peace. The kind that's preparation. Lily is with me now, Sabrina said. It's official. Tori asked what official meant. She asked it slowly, The way you ask a patient a question when you already suspect the diagnosis. There are papers, Sabrina said. Signed and filed. Custody is being handled by people who actually show up. Which papers? Tori pressed. Who signed what? There was a pause on the line. Then Sabrina said the 4 words that started everything. You signed them, Tori. The world went very still. Tori had signed nothing. She had given Marie guardianship. She had filed paperwork. She had done everything the right way. And now someone was on the other end of a phone, 8,000 miles from her, claiming that her own name was on a document that made her daughter disappear. I signed nothing, Tori said, her voice flat. So who did? Sabrina's answer came quick and practiced and cold. People do what's best for children. The line went dead. Tori sat in her bunk under the green stick figure drawing Lily had mailed her in week 3, the one labeled Mommy in her brave clothes, and she felt the floor give out beneath everything she'd built. Her daughter was in Sabrina's house. She was 8,000 miles away. And somewhere in a county office in North Carolina, a page existed with her name on a line she had never touched. This was the trap at its most complete. Not the forgery alone. The forgery worked because of the distance. Because she was on the other side of the world. Because someone had decided her absence was the same as her consent. Tori reached up and pressed her dog tags against her chest the way she always did when a thought got too big to hold. 2 thin pieces of stamped metal. Cold and solid and real. She breathed. And then she stopped clawing at the locked door and started looking for the one she could actually open. The next morning, she walked into the JAG office on the base and laid it out flat. The way you brief a trauma. Clear, fast, no wasted words. The JAG officer, Captain Hollis, listened without once interrupting. And when Tori finished, Hollis leaned forward and told her 2 things that changed the shape of the whole fight. First, she had the Service Members Civil Relief Act behind her. Under the SCRA, any civil or legal proceeding that she could not attend because of active deployment could be legally paused. They could not finalize anything about her daughter in her absence. Second, a forged signature on a legal document was not a family disagreement. In North Carolina, it was a felony. For the first time since Marie's voice broke on that call, Tori could see a road instead of a wall. She walked out of that office no longer a victim of someone else's paper. She was a medic with a patient to stabilize. And the patient was her own life. The forgery arrived in her email at 2 in the morning. Tori sat up in her bunk under Lily's drawing, opened the attachment, and looked at herself lying. Or rather, she looked at someone trying to look like her. A voluntary placement agreement. County letterhead. Official boxes. Lily's name. Sabrina named as caregiver. And at the bottom of the page, a signature line that was supposed to belong to her. She leaned close to the screen until the pixels blurred. Something was wrong. She could feel it before she could name it. So she breathed, and she looked again. Not as a grieving mother, but as a woman who had signed her name on 10,000 forms and knew every curve and habit of her own hand. There it was. 2 mistakes. Small. Fatal. For 12 years, Tori had signed her name the same way. Every check, every form, every birthday card. Tori R. Mayers. The R was for her mother. She never left it out. Not once. It was muscle memory bought with grief. The signature on the forged page read Tori Mayers. No middle initial. No mother in it. Whoever had written her name had never once watched her sign, because if they had, they would have known. The R was the part she'd never sacrifice. That was mistake 1. Mistake 2 was worse. Up in the corner beside the witness line sat a notary stamp with a date, March 9th. Tori read it twice. On March 9th, she had been on a forward operating base, 8,000 miles from North Carolina. Her name was on the duty roster for a dawn shift. She'd filed an incident report from a drill that same afternoon. The United States Army had documented her exact location on that exact day in 3 separate places. She could not have stood in a North Carolina notary's office on March 9th. It was physically impossible. And unlike the forged signature, which required an expert to challenge, that impossibility was stamped, logged, and signed by the United States military. Tori didn't cry. She didn't rage. She got up, found a pen, and started building a chart. She sent Denise Wallace, the caseworker who had called her carefully and promised her nothing, every piece of evidence before sunrise. The deployment orders, the duty roster, the access logs, the missing initial, circled in red. Denise called back within the hour. "Sergeant Mayers," she said, "I'm looking at your orders. The dates don't lie." A pause. "We're going to court." 2 months of fighting a voice on a phone that could be ignored or dropped or dismissed. 2 months of building a record in a bunk while her daughter slept in someone else's house. 2 months of discipline so tight it had become a kind of armor. And those 4 words broke something open inside her chest. "We're going to court." She flew home in uniform. On purpose. She wanted the room to see exactly who they had called unfit. She arrived early, because early is a habit you don't shake, and she set her file square on the table with her dog tags beside it. Thick as a field manual. Tabbed and color-coded. 2 months of the truth, stacked and waiting. Sabrina arrived in her church clothes, chin high, certain. Ray, her stepfather, the man who had first told her a roof and a rule were the same kind of love, followed behind her, rigid and satisfied. And behind them, pale and sweating in a suit a size too small, came Curtis Vance. The notary. There because a subpoena had made his attendance non-negotiable. The judge came in. Everyone stood. And the quietest fight of Tori's life finally got loud enough for a court to hear. Sabrina's attorney led with the forged page, presented as Tori's own documented consent, regular on its face, signed and sealed. His argument was practiced and clean. A stable placement, a present caregiver, a deployed parent's last-minute objection shouldn't unsettle a child who had finally found routine. It was a good argument. If no one looked too closely at the page. Tori's attorney rose and said simply, "Your Honor, we'd ask the court to look at 2 things on this agreement. The signature and the date." That was all. No theatrics. No accusations. Just an invitation to read. Then the documents came out, one stamped truth at a time. The deployment orders, covering every date on their page. The duty roster, Tori's name on a dawn shift on March 9th. The base access logs, her badge scanned on a base 8,000 miles away from that notary's office. The forensic examiner's report, the questioned signature did not match her genuine hand and lacked the middle initial present in every authentic sample. And then, the blade. The notary's own journal, subpoenaed and produced. March 9th. A blank line. Nothing. Not a record, not a name, not a signature witnessed. Just empty space where a legal entry should have been. The judge put on her glasses and read. Across the room, Sabrina's certainty held. Not for long. Then Tori looked up from her folded hands, and she said quietly, to the room, to the judge, to all of it, the sentence she had carried since week 6. "I signed nothing. The notary's book agrees. The duty roster agrees. The access logs agree. And the orders signed by an authority none of them could touch, agree. The only thing in this room that says I signed that page is the page itself. And the page is a lie." The room went silent. And then Sabrina stood up. She came up out of her chair before her attorney could stop her, the church calm cracking clean down the middle. And her voice climbed and finally said the line she had been carrying for years. The one from the cookout. The one from the family dinner. The one she truly believed with her whole heart. Soldiers don't get to be moms. The room flinched. The judge let the silence sit. And Tori looked at her stepsister, steady, quiet, calm, and said the only thing the moment needed. "I'm a soldier. And I'm her mom. Those aren't opposites. You just needed them to be." Then it unraveled, fast. Curtis Vance admitted, sitting in that suit that didn't fit, looking at a floor that offered nothing, that he had not watched Tori sign. That the document had been brought to him already signed. That he had stamped it as a favor and dated it the way he was asked. Ray, the man who had spent decades deciding the rules were whatever kept his household looking right, finally bent. His voice cracked and old. "I thought I was protecting her," he said. "I thought a child needed a home that stayed put." The judge turned to him and said the sentence that inverted his whole justification. "The best interest of a child is not served by fraud." Ray had told Tori on the phone, 2 months earlier, we did what was best for that child. The court had just defined best for him, and it did not include a forged page or a stolen name. The judge ruled. The placement was set aside. The forgery was referred to the district attorney. Tori's custody was restored. Marie, the person Tori had named before she ever got on the plane, was recognized as the designated caregiver Tori had chosen with her own hand. And then a door opened at the back of the courtroom. Tori stood up. Because a soldier stands. Because a mother could not have stayed in that chair if you'd bolted her to it. Lily came through the door at a dead run. She didn't hesitate. She found her mother's eyes across the room and crossed it like the floor was on fire. Tori dropped to one knee, down to her daughter's height, the way you go to a patient instead of making them come to you, and Lily hit her so hard she rocked back on her heel. Her arms went around her mother's neck. The dog tags pressed between them, cold metal warming fast against a 6-year-old's cheek. You came back, Lily whispered into her collar. Tori pulled back just enough to look at her, this gap-toothed girl who loved frogs and the color green. You said orders mean you come home. And Lily had believed her. Through all of it, through the weeks and the lies and the house that wasn't hers and the adults who told her her mother wasn't coming, she had held on to the one promise Tori gave her. The one with a stamp on it. Tori held her daughter's face in both hands. I will always come home to you, she said. Always. In the months that followed, the consequences arrived the way real consequences do. Slowly, completely, and without mercy. Sabrina was charged under North Carolina law. The state moved to recover the subsidy she'd collected. The payment she had chased ended up costing her far more than it was worth. Curtis Vance lost his notary commission and faced criminal charges for certifying a signing he never witnessed. The rubber stamp that he had treated like a favor finally stamped him. Ray was charged with nothing provable. But he lost the only things that had ever actually mattered. Trust. Family. The chair at the table where a granddaughter used to sit. They didn't speak again. Tori finished her deployment. She updated her family care plan, tighter than before, every contingency named, every door locked twice. She served the rest of her orders knowing exactly what she was protecting. And Lily, 6 years old and gap-toothed and wild-spirited, taped a new drawing above her own bed when they finally got home. A green stick figure in brave clothes. Labeled, Mommy came back. There is a sentence that Sabrina carried for years like a weapon. A sentence she said at cookouts and dinner tables and finally in a courtroom where it lives in the record now forever. Soldiers don't get to be moms. She was wrong. Soldiers don't abandon their children. They leave them behind only to protect the world those children live in. They cross oceans and sign papers and file plans and carry dog tags and fight. Not with fists but with paperwork and patience and the truth told slow. And when someone steals their name, they come home. And they read the record back. A forged page only holds until someone with the truth, and the patience to file it, finally walks into the room. That's the story of a stolen signature. An empty notary line. And orders that told the truth when her own family wouldn't. If you or someone you love serves, do 2 things this week. Set up your family care plan, and learn what the SCRA protects before you ever need it. Send this to one military family tonight. It could be the page that changes everything for them. By the way, where are you watching this story from? Drop your city or country in the comments, because it's something special to see how far these stories travel around the world.